So thank you for introducing me. I'm very happy to be here. I welcome you all and hope you will enjoy the lecture. The title of my lecture is Philosophy of Play and Games, a new philosophical discipline where I would like to address the issues of philosophical approach to games and playing. I think that at this point of the development of general philosophy, we can talk about the beginning of a new discipline, which I think in a short time will be a new philosophical discipline that will attract many people. So we can start. First that comes to mind when playing games today is for me, TV show called Squid Games. Probably you've watched it. This TV show attracted many viewers and proposed many ethical and other questions. So I believe that the first question is, can we talk about Squid Games in terms of games? Is this show a game, and why these games should be considered as games or no? So in the next slide you can see the rationale. First, when we watch the literature, or we take into account different scholars, philosophers that were talking about or thinking about games, the things that they're talking about are all present in this game show or TV show. So there are specific rules that they have to play by. Then all the players have a voluntary choice to join or not to these games. Then there is one important thing that was highlighted in the show. It's equality of the chances. If you watched the show, then at one point one of the players were cheating in a way that the ones that should acquire a fair game were telling him what will be the next challenge. So he had an unfair advantage. So he was killed, of course, like everyone in this game or in this show, and it was explained in a very clear way that everyone should have equality of chances. Everyone should have equal chance to win. Then there is a special world, or something that in literature is called magic circle of game. It's actually in an actual place away from the society, and it's actually really a special world. Then different form of life that is not a normal life, so we have that. And there is one important thing that was emphasized by the latest development in theory of games in philosophical approach. That's Thi Nguyen, who said that the games are all about human agency. And in this show we can see how you can use human agency. So everything you got, your resources, how will you use it to play a game? And he thinks that this what we are doing with our agencies, with our resources, is actually a form of art. And finally, there is a tension and uncertainty in every game, because you don't know if you will win or not. So next slide is actually a ground slide, I would say. That's two distinct disciplines were developed in a recent time, addressing the problems or issues of games. So one is game studies. This is an interdisciplinary field which try to engage as many possible and relevant disciplines as possible. And other one is philosophy. Philosophy in general is asking basic questions. So these are essential questions for what we are thinking about or reflecting about. This is the same with games. So if we're talking about philosophy of games, then philosophy has its special purpose to ask why Why games? Why play games? What is valuable about games that we should engage in such activity? Why should we play, and how should we play? How should we play properly? How should we play ethically or morally? So these are the questions that philosophy proposed. So there is always room for philosophy, because if you want to understand what you're doing, what you're dealing with, what is bothering you, you should do philosophy. And philosophy is about reflection. So you need to understand that, and from this basic understanding goes everything else. So next. At these next slides, I will introduce, let's say, a history or short history of philosophy of games and play. So these are, in my view, the most important philosophers or works in this field. So first one is, of course, everybody knows Homo Ludens from Johann Huizinga. I deliberately say it like this, Huizinga, because it's a proper way to say it. In Croatian and in the world terms, his name or surname is pronounced differently, mostly wrongly, like Huizinga or Huizinga or something like that. But I can assure you that it's Huizinga, because I've been in his place where he was born and talked to my colleague where I was staying and asking her if she can appoint me to something that is left behind Johann Huizinga. I was pronouncing it like that. And she couldn't understand me. She didn't know what I'm talking about. So finally I wrote it down to the paper, and she said, Huizinga. Okay, now I know, and I will remember for all of my life. So it's Johann Huizinga. And Homo Ludens is a basic literature if you want to study play or games. And here are some features that Johann Huizinga has singled out in terms of play and game. So games or playing games is always non-seriousness. And that's how he thinks about games. We now have professional players of games, people that are engaging to this activity only for money or let's say external purposes. But for him, this is voluntary activity, this is non-seriousness, and there are some features that will later be in the literature highlighted by every other scholars, and they will base their theories upon Huizinga's in different ways. So one of them is there are limits of time and place, so it's a special world. This will be highlighted as magic circle. We will address this issue a little bit later. Then there should be rules. Rules should be understandable for every player, and everyone should play by the rules. Then this is an aim in itself. So playing and game playing is autoitalic activity. So you're doing it for its sake, not for anything else. So it's not instrumental. If you're playing instrumental, then you're not playing, in Huizinga's term. You should play it for the sake of the game, for beauty of game, or I don't know, strive of the game, or anything else that you find autoitalic in this activity. And finally, it's different from ordinary life. So when you're playing game, you're entering another world. This is this magic circle, and you're inside of this magic circle for the time being, for the time that you're playing game. Then there is this emphasis on tension and uncertainty, and of course playing by the rules. If you're not playing by the rules, this is the basic stance of Huizinga, then you're out of the game. The moment that you break the rules, you're out of the game. Especially if you're doing on purpose, because you want to win, so you cheat or break a rule in any way, you're out of the game. That's his position. So magic circle is a magic word here that was used in the literature. It means that everyone who's playing a game is entering this theoretical space that is not existing actually, or it can be a place, but it's a place in the real world that is actually theoretical, because you're entering in, you're abiding the rules, and you're doing logical reasoning of different kind, according by the rules. So everything is similar to reality, but everything is different at the same time. Actions inside the magic circle do not have their usual consequences for the rest of life. So this theory of Hausenka is that we are entering magic circle and nothing goes out of this circle. So everything you do in the game, it's not going out of the game. So that's the basic principle of his. But there is a lot of literature on that. It is not like that, because we have examples from our world, from our experience. Maybe the biggest problem in Croatia today, social problem, psychological problem, and else is entering to betting games. So you go to betting places, you bet, you take bets, and there are consequences in the real world. You get addicted, families are torn apart because of such things. And psychological consequences, and so on, so on. So this other approach says that magic circle is not a magic circle actually, because the things that you do in games actually goes out in the real world, and you have different consequences in the real world by playing in a magic circle. Next, please. Jako Stenros, one of the authorities in this field, developed his own view on magic circle, and he said that we should distinguish three forms. One is psychological bubble, second is the arena of play, and third is the magic circle proper. So first one is the playful state of mind. So we are in a special state of mind when we play a game. Second, arena of play. This is culturally recognized structure for playful action. So this is the place that we form to play the games. And third is the magic circle proper, a social contract created through negotiation and extra game communication for mutual play. So actually, magic circle is not a place, as a space, but it's more of a social contract. It's a place that we agree on to be in and to play the games in certain ways that we agree all, mostly because of the mutual pleasure. So we can enjoy playing games in a proper and most extended way. So next one is Roger Calois. He's a French author who wrote the book Man, Play and Games, and he, in my belief, makes another step in the history of philosophy of play and game by his fourfold differentiation. Okay, so there are four differences in watching the games and play. First one is agon, the play of competition. We all know that from even Greek times, ancient times. Then there is a mimesis, the play of make-believe. Then alea, the play of luck and gambling. And finally, illings, the play of vertigo and disorientation. And there is more. Please, next slide. He also distinct the play impulse and the game impulse. So there are difference there, play and games. The play impulse he called paida, and that's childlike impulse towards free exploration and discovery. While the gaming impulse, ludus, is tendency towards regulation and measurement. So when children play, they gleefully rolling around in the mud, wrestling for the sheer fun of it. While adults wrestling according to rules with the judged outcome, and that's ludus. So you understand these differences. The next one is, for me, very special. It's Bernard Herbert Suits, because I'm interested in the philosophy of games mostly through philosophy of sport that I'm actually specialized in. And Bernard Herbert Suits is, let's say, authority for both. philosophy of playing games and philosophy of sports. I invite you to read his articles and especially the book Grasshopper, Games, Life and Utopia, which is, I think, a brilliant masterpiece where he, in form of Aesop tales, is talking about how people should live life. So there is one grasshopper and two ants. They are discussing how you should live your life. Of course, ants are responsible and always thinking about future planning and so on, while grasshopper doesn't care about that. He is just living life as it is. So he is contrasting these two ways of living life and giving an answer that you will hear a little bit. So he's talking mostly about games, and he sees games as autotelic activities. And they have 4 features. These are the ones. First one is illusory goal, second is illusory means, illusory rules, and illusory attitude. Illusory is an invented word by Suits. It's not existing, and it's based on ludus, so something playful. And when he's saying illusory, he means playfully. And illusory goal is the thing that you should do in game. You should make a point, score points, and in the end you should win or not. Illusory means are acceptable means in playing games. These are prescribed by the illusory rules, and you should have rules, and without rules there is no game. And finally, there is illusory attitude, where players, when engaging into playing games, should have an attitude to follow the rules. In other way, you wouldn't play the game if you not follow the rules. Finally, he created at the end of the book sort of a utopia. It's a small part of the book, but this utopia is a place in the world where all the problems are solved, all scientific knowledge is here. We know everything about everything, and we don't need to do anything else anymore. So the question is, like Karl Marx is proposing, what will people do then? Or for him, what should people do if they will have all the time of the world and no problems and nothing to do? So he say his solution for modern man is you should play games. And here he proposed a new definition of playing. Playing is autotelic activity of any kind. So if you do things for its own sake, you are playing. You're not working. Even if you're working in normal terms, I don't know, you're building a house, but you're doing it because you love building houses, because you enjoy this activity of building, then you're not working, you're playing. And that's his solution. You should always engage in activity in autotelic way. That's the solution for the modern man. I think it's a very good solution, I would say. I don't know about you. I can certainly say that it is for me. So I'm doing something that I really, really love. So for me, my work is not work, it's actually play in Suits terms. So next, this attitude or this stances that Suits proposed for games are actually called later in the literature formalism. Why? Because emphasis is on the rules and on following the rules. But there are more to the games or playing, not just following the rules. So this approach we call formalism, because you're just watching the rules and obeying the rules, but that's not all to it. So there is another concept called ethos of games. There is an ethos of games, which is basically how we should play game, and it's not prescribed. It's somehow came in a community of players where they start to play games in some form or some way, with some attitude, and it's acceptable by all the players. That's the ethos of games. So it's something that is like a convention. All the players are playing game in some way, and they think that's the right way to play. So everyone accepts that, and when you're entering the game, you know these conventions. You're presented by, these conventions, and then you accept them and play in a way the community plays. So this is the ethos of game. And then everything, all game playing is getting another context. They say a cultural context. So I like this sentence from Malaby. Games are moving targets capable of generating new emergent effects that then inform the following instances of the game. So we see that games are not just the rules, there are much more to it. And finally, I think this is the last step, the last important step made by Christopher Bath Nguyen, American philosopher who is investigating games for some time, and he's writing a lot. He's very active on Twitter, and if you will follow him, you will see that his latest article is gamification of Twitter, where he is saying that on Twitter is going actually a game or game playing while you're twittering with other scholars, students, and others that are interested in the topic that you are, and interested in Twitters that you're putting on the platform. So he wrote the book Games, Agency as Art, which I think is brilliant, and I think it's another step in the big book in the history of philosophy of games and play. So after Hausinha, Kaloa, Suits, there is Nguyen. He is respecting the history of philosophy of games, all the authors that I mentioned, and he is building upon them. It's interesting how he sees things differently, and I would say layering. He sees layers where nobody else has ever saw. So this is his view. First, his basic principle is games are the art form, and not any kind of art form, but art form of human agencies. So what makes games art is how we are playing games, actually. How we use our agencies, our resources that we have, and how we put them in games, and what do we do with them. He thinks it's forms of art. So this sentence I find crucial. Painting lets us record sights. Music lets us record sounds. Stories let us record narratives. And games let us record agencies. So how we use our resources in playing games. Next one. These are the layers that he finds important in game playing, and nobody else saw that for now. And now there is a big hustle in the philosophy of games, so games theory community. They all want to respond to him. Some of them are attacking him, some of them agreeing with him, but everyone, I think, agree that it's important book, whether they think it's brilliant masterpiece or not. So these new distinctions that he proposed in watching upon games is, first, there is a distinction between goal and purpose. Goal is winning, while purpose is the reason why you engage in game playing. Second is intrinsic and extrinsic. So intrinsic is essential element of playing, while extrinsic is external. These are other things, notions, instances that are not directly in the games but are out. That's like, I don't know, you're engaged in game playing for external reasons like money, fame, or something else. And there is finally this striving and achieving, which I find the most important thing that he single out in his theory. Two types of motivations that are involving you in two types of playing. So one is struggle and striving. Your motivation is struggle and striving, so you don't care so much about winning. You are going for a win, but the most important thing for you when you're playing is striving and struggling. So you enjoy that. All these things that you're doing when you're playing game and trying to achieve goal, and that's a win. And there is another it's called achieving, when you're all about achievement, all about to win, to score. And your motivation is not so struggle or striving or enjoying, you're doing it for the win. That's the most important thing. In that way, he, of course, distinct 4 types of players: intrinsic striving player, extrinsic striving player. So when you're striving for some reasons. These reasons can be intrinsic and or internal and external. And this is also 2 ways of playing games through achievement form. Intrinsic achievement player, extrinsic achievement player. So, please, another slide. And there is also 2 types of game playing. One is striving playing, another one is achievement playing. Striving playing has 2 interesting things that he pointed out. First one is a so-called extension puzzle. When you're playing because of striving, you want the game to be as long as possible. So you're trying to make a game as long as possible, and this is this extension puzzle. So you're always thinking of stuff or playing game in a way to extend the game and not to finish it. That's maybe in, I don't know, from sports. In tennis, you can score and have a win, but you deliberately not doing that, but pronouncing the game further, so you can, I don't know, make the ball in and out. So that will be extension. And another one is absorption puzzle, where you looking for the ways to play a game so the game can absorb you. So you're absorbed in the game fully, and then you will have this inner feeling of beauty, of, I don't know, ecstasies, maybe stuff like that. And another one, achievement, is all about achieving. So goal, internal to games, or external win, status, money, and so on. So, and I have one more thing. I don't know how am I with time? Is it a little more time? Okay. So then there is the ethics of game, which I will then point out as another important thing. So maybe you can help me. Okay. These are the things that ethics of game should deal with or is dealing with. So one is, of course, how to play games morally, how to deal with ethical dilemmas in game playing. Is playing games affecting our moral judgment? That's an important question. And there are ethical implications of the represented content in games. So there is graphic violence, killings, cheating, fouling, fair play, but most of the questions in ethics of games is going to this graphic violence, killing, and whether this affect our moral judgment in the real world. So please, next slide. Okay, so first question is something wrong with fictionally killing an innocent person within the game? And if we engage 3 theories, ethical theories, normative theories, and try to answer the question, we will see that utilitarian and deontological way to see this question has no problem with it. You will have no problem. These theories wouldn't say to you anything. They could not address this question, while virtue ethics has a problem with such an approach. That's why, because we are reinforcing virtuous habits and dispositions in ourselves. So we are making dispositions for virtues or flaws that are not acceptable in an ethical way morally. Next one is maybe even more extreme. How could one consistently hold both, that virtual murder was acceptable, but that virtual pedophilia was unacceptable? So such questions are very important in ethical terms in playing games, and I enlisted a few articles or authors that are dealing with such question. but I will point out Bartel as this is the last one. Virtual murder is not murder of any sort, but virtual pedophilia is child pornography, and so consuming it is morally wrong. And next slide. There is a question of moral reflection in games. The crucial question is actually whether the game's design encourages or squashes moral reflection. So this is a very important thing. And what I find most interesting is a question about the games. They're giving you points for moral behavior. And the authors mostly think that this is not a good thing for your moral behavior and for your morality. Why? Because you're then not engaged in moral reflection. And games should involve you in moral reflection. You should think about morality, you should think about how you should act in a moral way. And if you're just getting points, you're not thinking, you're just getting points. So this doesn't, let's say, put you in a way to be a moral person or to be more ethical, but the other way around. And please, next. This is my last slide towards the future of philosophy of games, please. Nguyen actually enlisted 4 types of approaches to philosophically engage questions of games in play. First one is aesthetical. Second one is design systems which structure play. Then venues for skilled activities and competition. And goes to something like children's play. And he thinks that the best approach would be for the future, and I agree with him, for philosophy and games in play, to involve all of them together and not to address them in a specific way individually. So this is all for me, and thank you for listening.